Greetings everyone, I'm Record the Second, and welcome to a quick tutorial video on how to make mobs in Minecraft Shiver. It's basically just a visual thing, and it makes it appear as though they are shaking, which can be used for all kinds of things. I personally use it for mob transformations in my data pack More Mobs, and also to display aggression, so you can do a lot of cool stuff with this mechanic. But just to preface this, it's only one command, but it requires you changing the data of the mob, which means that this is not applicable to players. As of me recording this video right now, we are not able to change player entity data, only for other entities. And also this only works on mobs, so entities like paintings, items, item frames, armor stands, minecarts, boats, or projectiles, something that is not a living being will not be affected. Something that's also important to point out, this will change depending on what kind of mob you're targeting. There are different values which I'm using, and if you guys haven't guessed it yet, I am using the powder snow mechanic to make this a thing, which means that if you set the value very high, it might damage the mob. And there are specific values which I show. There are values where it starts to damage the mob and values where it's guaranteed to damage the mob. Also, there are values that are really low which will not damage the mob. It will require you to keep executing the command to maintain the visual. Just bear that in mind with whatever you're using this for, whether it be an adventure map or a data pack. It would need to be run consistently, usually, to achieve this effect. You either need to set the TicksFrozen value higher, or you would just need to keep setting that value to maintain the shaking visual. And don't forget that different mobs are affected differently. For example, freezing damage will do twice as much damage to really hot mobs like magma cubes and blazes. And there are also mobs that are immune to freezing, such as polar bears and strays, and they will not be affected by the damage. So you can set the TicksFrozen value for them as high as you want, and they will not take damage. That's just something to keep in mind. I also want to remind you that you might want to consider the possibility that the mob is in actual powder snow, and at that point you want the effects of the powder snow to apply to the mob. When you're running these commands, you are overriding the natural TicksFrozen value that the mob should have, and so if the command keeps running and the mob is in powder snow, the powder snow will never take effect on it because you're constantly changing the value. So if you want to make your mobs more believable, then I recommend that you actually have detection for when the mob is inside of powder snow. That can be done easily with a predicate, and that would be the best way to do it, because you will be able to detect that the mob is colliding with the hitbox of the powder snow block without having to check the size of the mob or the location of the block. It'll just be the easiest way of doing that, and it's a very simple thing. I will include a link to a data pack generator in the description where you can generate a predicate very easily that will have this behavior. But you need to remember that this will be a JSON file, which means that you cannot just run this with a simple command. You would need to have this predicate file either in the data folder of the world or within a data pack, which would be in the data packs folder of the world, for the predicate to work. But then once you have the predicate, you will be able to detect if the mob is inside of a powder snow block or not, and then you can not run this command if the predicate applies to the mob. So I'm not going to be explaining how /data works or how predicates in general work and selectors, because I assume that you have some basic knowledge of those things, and if you do not, you can look that up in another video. This is just a simple hack of sorts on how to make mobs appear as if they're shaking or shivering in Minecraft. It's a really cool visual, and one that I've been using constantly since it's been added to the game with powder snow in 1.17. so any version and up from this will probably work. However, any possible version might break the command syntax itself, so I do not think this tutorial will be evergreen, but it'll probably stay relevant for a long time unless Mojang changes the data value for TicksFrozen, maybe changes it to snake case instead of camel case, and I guess the command would not be functional anymore. But yeah, you know how it works. These things can happen with Minecraft. Over the years, the commands and the values and the NBT data do change quite a lot. But yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to smash subscribe, ring my bell, and as always, stay